Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of God Built This podcast. I'm your host, Maxine, and we are on episode 80. Today, we are joined with a friend of the show, a friend of mine in real life. Alletia's back in the house. Hello.
Hey guys, hey.
We are still doing this virtual thing. And, sometimes I'm used to it. Sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, this is real life. Like, how are you handling this?
Honestly, every day I tell myself I'm gonna work out because I'm losing muscle. I can see it in my body. I go from my bed to my couch to my kitchen to my bed,
Repeat,
this small
right.
area. And I've been outside of my house maybe 5 times since the end of March because I wasn't playing no game. So
Right.
I have literally not walked or anything, and I'm just I'm not eating a lot, but I'm also not moving, and I think my metabolism slowed, and it's just bro, this is just, I feel like I should be fine as hell, because I haven't really been eating that bad and all this, I haven't taken any type of alcohol since before New Year's Eve, really.
Shout out
And
to
so it's
you.
well, I'm I don't drink sodas or cake. I'm where's my results? I don't see them. So I think
I'm
I'm gonna
sure
have
it's there. It's probably your eyes can't see it, but I probably could see it when I.
Nah, my eyes saw that I just bought some kettlebells. All the workout equipment is sold out across America.
Still?
Yes, still. I had to wait 2 months apart to get kettlebells, 10 pounds, because that's all I could buy.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm about to be on it this month. They got my kettlebells and got this little workout plan I'm gonna be doing in my little living room. So gonna make a way. Gonna make a way.
Yeah, I only have my yoga mat, my straps for squats and stuff, and what is it? Weights.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my 12-pound weights, and that's it here in Boston. So, but in Houston, I only have a yoga mat, and I don't even have a kettlebell. And I think my gym is just now reopening. I got an email from my, my apartment complex. They're saying just now opening, but we're still doing 6 feet. And if we can't follow the rules, then we're going to shut it down again. They're very adamant about it, which is, I respect it. It's cool. But I'm hoping by the time I return in a few weeks, so I'll be returning early July, I'm hoping things will hopefully get more open. I don't know how that looks like.
I think things are going to be open. They opened 50% last week. I think with the protest, even though the COVID numbers are supposedly going up, I don't know how much the death rate is because I haven't really been paying attention to those numbers really, with everything else that's been going on. But with everybody going outside for the protest, I think they're going to definitely push everything to be open. And the only reason I'm excited about that, one, even if they push everything open, I think people are still going to self-isolate. I think a lot of people are. So it's still not going to be full no more, even though they're going to open a lot of stuff. And two, I was worried about how voting would go if they kept everything shut down. So for at least, because they were going to blame it on COVID. I already knew they were going to just shut everything. Oh, we'll go COVID. So for that reason alone, I'm excited that things will be up. I figure by August, it'll be 100%, but there will at least be 30 to 50% of people still going to self-isolate. Myself is going to be included in that. I have no desire to be going to brunch or anything else. But because you just never know. COVID is one of those things you just don't know yet. There's not a vaccine available.
Right.
It's some people get it and die in 3 days. Some people get it and they overcome it. People are oh, well, you're young. And I'm yeah, but people, I'm pretty healthy. My blood, I don't have any really that many comorbid or high blood pressure, any of those type of things, but you just never know. You can just never know since the last time you went to the doctor that you,
right.
I have acid reflux. It doesn't really flare up until that bother me until I'm doing cardio. But what if that could potentially, you don't know the interactive factor. So it's kind of for me, it's just one of those things. It's bro, it's a pandemic. What am I risking my life for? I look at it like that. What am I risking it for?
I know. And it's there's just, you know, a lot of us are feeling antsy. We're like, okay, I want to get out the house. Let me just get out the house. Let me just get out the house.
Yeah,
And there's still a pandemic happening. And how do
yeah.
we balance that with the protests and making sure our voices are heard and we're out there when we're being loud, when we still need to be safe and still need to be alive in order to vote correctly to get Trump out. So I think it's just a lot going on. So when I ask how are you doing, it's like it's such a heavy question. You know, people usually ask how you doing, and it's just like, oh, I'm fine. Just is, you know, dismissive. This time is like there's a lot to answer to that. Like, how are you doing with just the protests, with Black Lives Matter, with our voices being heard? Are they being heard enough? And I just saw a recent picture of the Democratic Party, so Nancy Pelosi and a few other members. They
Kneeling.
they knelt and they had their kente cloth around them. And you know, how are people feeling
Those
with that?
kente cloths look fresh, like they just snatched them out the bed. Did you not see it? Because you know, real
It was
kente cloth,
ironed
if you
and
really
pressed.
had it. Exactly. You know, you gotta iron them. They look fresh. They don't even look like they was ironed because there's still one
Like,
wrinkle that.
ma'am, is this authentic? What's going on? But
Yeah.
yeah, like, what is that? What is
Performative. Because it goes back to, well, one, answer the first question, you know, how are you dealing with like feeling antsy, but there's a pandemic going on, but then we're risking our lives going out and protest. And it comes down to prioritizing because you're facing death in both instances, right? Like, I think that's why people were just like, well, forget it. We're going to go out and protest because the threat was as imminent as COVID, right? Especially because it's been going on before COVID. So I think
right?
that's what had people. I've been working still, so by the time I get off, because this is my going into my busy season, because I work for health insurance with all the layoffs and all that other type of stuff. It's like you can't even get down there. But just looking at all the protests, and especially they've gotten larger this last week, especially all over the world. Like, if you've seen these pictures, I just saw a picture in Austin. I'm like, is Austin that big to even? How many thousands of people are there? That's crazy, you know. So I think in the mindset where people are like, I do see a lot. I see majority of people wearing masks, so it's not like they're being super reckless. But as far as like the social distancing part, yeah, you can't be 6 feet apart. I think you know, individually they're probably like not sharing water and things like that. But as far as like, do I stay in the house or do I go protest, it's kind of like you have to capitalize on the moment. And it just so happened that and like how fast that should let people. And I think that's probably maybe why a lot of non-Black people joined as well, because they're like, well, damn, by now people know that Black and minority people are have some of the highest rates, right, of COVID, for various reasons. And it's like, damn, y'all risking your life. It must be really serious. So, but with what was the second question? What was the second part of the question?
I forgot. What was
But yeah,
it?
this one with the
Oh,
protest. You know what's funny?
performative.
Oh, performative. Okay, so it. I don't want to say it's our fault. I think it's just the system, right? Like, one of the biggest things I think that Black people, especially our generation, when we're trying to fight each other on what should we do, what strategy to take to get things, because how are we doing versus how civil rights was doing it. And I was just reading a thread on Martin Luther King that this historian wrote on Twitter, because he was like, a lot of y'all, like, a lot of history has been whitewashed to be more, you know, better consumed, more palatable. And that's why a lot of people have this misconception about Martin Luther King. He was like, Martin Luther King did not like protests, actually. Everything you saw Martin Luther King do, it looked like people framed it as protest, but it had a direct action, a direct goal. There was legal cases involved in the background. And so, like the Montgomery bus boycott, that was a whole legal case in the background. People didn't, when that 365-day bus protest ended, there was still racial intimidation and violence. And Black people didn't, he was like, Black people didn't even really sit anywhere they wanted to into the 70s in the bus. Right. And that happened in 19. Right. And so he was like, and it wasn't the boycott that got that passed that law. It was, that got people, Black people can, you know, be able to ride wherever they want. It was the legal case in the background. So he was talking about like the Bloody Sunday in Selma. He's like, Martin Luther King wasn't even the architect. It was this other guy that was in SNTC, that organized it. And they were walking to go vote. They weren't just walking over the bridge in a protest. They were not, because Black people weren't allowed to vote. So they would walk, they figured, and they were getting beat every time smaller groups tried to go. So they figured that if they go in a big group, they can't beat all of them. And so they actually tried 3 times in Blood Ace. And the third time, the guy, I think his name was Fred, the third time the guy said, we're going to bring bats and we're going to bring bricks and we're going to bring the other stuff with us this time. And that's what ended up happening to be Bloody Sunday. That's why that was the most violent, because they fought back. And soon after that, that's when the Voting Rights Act was passed. And he was like, several, political analysts and people back in the day, historians or whatever, said it was actually the fact that the Black people fought back, which what put the pressure to pass the Voting Act. Now, it was not a protest, but that's just because we, so people, Martin Luther King got to be rolling his grave, how people have just intentionally and not intentionally, because it's not our fault. Like, this is literally what we've been taught.
That's how we were been taught,
people have to, it's hard to disseminate certain information, especially information you don't want to disseminate, and how people choose what goes in education books. But I mean, even just for like in our families, we don't really know that much. It's difficult in that sense. But like performative, as far as like our generation, I feel like because we've gotten these symbolic freedoms, we don't fight back as hard strategically or with actual force, right? With not necessarily projects. Like, there's a difference between violence and contentiousness, right? Being violent versus getting someone uncomfortable. You're not violent, but they're not comfortable, right? We haven't really straddled that line. People just be all the way violent, or they'll just be like, oh, kumbaya, we'll accept you kneeling. We'll accept you kneeling. We'll accept you painting Black Lives Matter on a boulevard that your police are gonna beat us down with at after the 8 p.m. curfew. And it's just like, that part is important, because symbolism is what drives motivation. A lot of times people have to see something. In legislation and policy, it takes a minute. It takes a lot of people in the background. Most people don't want to get into the nitty-gritty background. They just want to know you're doing it. That's why we have representatives. And so, yes, it's not that it doesn't matter. It does matter, but it needs to happen. There needs to be happening simultaneously. Or what happens is people get plate-headed with this symbolism. They assume the back end is getting handled, but because people don't concede power, right? Like, they'll keep pushing it off. Like they do anything in government. It gets pushed off, it gets pushed off, it gets pushed off. And you're thinking, oh, wait, what happened to your girl? The sale ain't passed? No.
Right. What happened to that bill that you said was going to, yeah.
Because a lot of it is, you didn't keep your foot on their neck, because you thought that symbolism was like, okay, guys, we heard you. We're taking up the mantle. And so that's where, like, yes, it was cute. But the thing is, like, even that, I get in my mind, like, Alicia, you can't be mad at everything. You can't be mad. Like, you can't get mad. People, like, white people or people of color, they're ignoring the Black community. And then when they do something like this, or they're kneeling, you get mad because it feels phony to us. Right? But that's just how they know how to do it. So you give them that. But then I think about, okay, it would have felt even more genuine if y'all had done it soon after he died. This has been 2 weeks. You're only doing it because they went from, one, because white people start doing it. Then you got people, you know how embarrassed you gotta be that your own government had to kneel for the 8 minutes, but you got niggas in Germany and Australia on a bridge kneeling for 8 minutes on a man they
wasn't even on their streets. Like,
the black population is like nilch, and they out here in force. Like, who put y'all together?
And isn't it 18 countries? 18 countries that
and not no small protests. These look like what's that hippie festival like South by Southwest, or those. That's what it looked like those big festivals. People that came from that's in every single city. It's mind blowing. They out here, and it be white. It's most, because one is Black people are only 13%. So anyway, you were gonna see more of those places, but that's when they said, "Oh, well, damn, I guess we better kneel."
And that's the funny thing about it, because I was at a recent protest in Boston, and I guess statistically, Boston has more white people, of course, but there was a lot of white people, like a lot of white people, surprisingly so, at the protest. And though I was happy, like, okay, I felt proud and, excited that, okay, cool, they're finally here. They're finally showing up and showing for us. That's great. But it still made me wonder, are you doing this because you're just antsy? You just want to get out the house? Are you one of the ones who's an outside agitator who's trying to wreck things up? Like, what is your true intention? I do naturally try to look at the positive and see, okay, maybe they're just doing it from their heart. And I do believe that. But I noticed there was a couple of Black protesters alongside me. There was one woman in particular. She was so angry, rightfully so, but she was so angry, so much so that she screamed in the air of a white woman, and she was like, "Now you want to protest?" And she was screaming these statements. You know how we would say Black Lives Matter or kill the cops or whatever it is. She'll say that in the air of this white woman who just happened to be in front of her. She did it like two times actually. And I turned around and looked at her. I'm like just shocked, but I kept on moving. She eventually stopped. She only did it twice, but it was just, you could tell the energy was so intense that even though there were white people there, a lot of Black people weren't as welcoming to that, and that's fine. That's justifiable. But then I wonder, what is truth and what is not? Like, who is really an ally, who is not? And I think about all those outside agitators who are doing the looting and who's taking up the attention of the cause for this protest, the cause of all of this, and it's making us feel like, okay, are you really here to really be here with us, or are you trying to fuck shit up? Which one is it? Then I just want to get into what you were saying earlier, pressing them at the neck, because I am for it all. I'm for looting, fucking
You and me both. You and
rioting.
me
Like,
both.
I'm not, like, I know it's
Burning
not
that bitch to the
political,
ground.
right? I know it's not politically correct to say that, right? It's not, you
But
just.
it's historically accurate.
So let's
That's
talk
why
about,
it
like,
feels justified.
and I'm so glad that you gave that history prior, because I wasn't too familiar with that. You have Martin Luther King, who was
I
this.
just learned it 3 minutes ago. That's why it was taking me so long to log on. I was like, oh shit, let me like read this.
I'm
I
so happy
just
you
learned it,
did. I'm
Maxine.
so happy you did, because I would have never known that. Like, Bloody Sunday. Let me look that up. And this should be a documentary on that. What are we doing that we don't know this stuff? And it's sad that we were in the school system and we were taught these lies. It starts with Columbus and now this. What is the truth? There's so many tweets and so many sayings of people saying, I'm more Malcolm X than I am Martin Luther King. I'm more, this aggressor, this Carmichael or Stokely Carmichael than I am Martin Luther
Because
King.
those are the only people they know.
That's the only people they know. They see Martin Luther King as this passive, protest, this passive activist, when we're not giving that.
And the guy whose name that was really on the ground, and he actually had those, because like in the Black community, like I always tell people, if you even say anything, if you the things coming out your mouth about Martin Luther King have anything to do with, oh, everybody loved him, why don't you do like Martin Luther King do it? I know that you don't know shit about Martin Luther King, because there was many people in the Black community and people from SNCC and all those other organizations that did not fuck with Martin Luther King because they felt like he was a figurehead. And so the guy's name that was in SNCC that really was on the ground for Bloody Sunday was James Foreman. He was actually mad that Martin Luther King got a lot of credit, even though Martin Luther King had gone to one of those days. It was because he was like, you're not even here. Like, you don't even live here, And they felt like he was getting a lot of the attention that the people get on the ground. And that happens in every grassroots, right? Like, you got the people putting their feet in the mud, but they don't have, that's why it's like everybody has their shine. People on a larger scale, and it matters just as now, even though our medium is social media, where you see all of it versus just hearing them on the radio or just seeing them on TV as those inventions were happening, right? That's why oratory is such a impressive gift, because people are moved by emotion. They're moved, they're moved by, and that's why music is so powerful. And they're moved by certain daring acts, like, and it's just that he was that guy. He was the guy, but on the underside of it, like, he knew how to play that role. But on the other side of it, he like the guy was narrating, he didn't do nothing that wasn't a strategy. He's like, there was nothing that was performative. If you saw him walking, it was because they were on their way to do something. But all that was reported was, oh, they're walking. You see them holding hands. Now you know that they was trying to go to the voting booth that was on the other side of the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, to go back to your actual, like, I don't know why they're here, performing, all of the above. There are people that are there for everything. Are you here because you want to be radical? Are you here because you want to agitate? Are you here because you're genuinely just trying to fit in and just do something? You don't know what to do, so you're just trying to do something, because people go where the momentum goes, right? And that's needed, right? All of the above. The things that we have to focus on, or we'll get, in Black people, I say Black people because that's our community, it's a human thing. There is nothing that Black people are fighting over within ourselves that the Indian people are fighting over within themselves, the Asian people are fighting within themselves, because it's human dynamics. It's group dynamics, it's hierarchy, it's class dynamics. None of these things are different, but we're the Black community, so we're going to talk about our community.
Right.
So like within the Black community, we got to focus on focusing our energies and our righteousness. Because like that lady was, a lot of people, and it's not, I agree with all these damn statements, especially with the football and the Colin Kaepernick, them niggas still ain't said it. Wow, George ain't the only motherfucker that's not even killed by a police officer, videotaped. Tamir Rice was a child. Well, I would think that he would have sparked this type of momentum. Like, what was it about George Floyd? And that's why when people say it wasn't him, it was circumstance of him plus COVID.
Right.
If this pandemic had not happened, Max, we would not be having this movement. Yeah. It was literally because the country had to be shut down for people to see it. I didn't realize, because we're looking through our lens, we don't get to escape it. Even if we could be working, take care of kids, take care of our family, and we still got to deal with the emotional and the logical burdens of, damn, somebody else got killed again. Okay, if I got Black sons, let me have this talk again. Let me do, and I got to get ready for work. But white people and they just literally went about their way, and I didn't really. To me, it doesn't make sense to me, because it's like. But then I can think, just like if there's an issue that doesn't directly affect you, how, like, you might look at it, but do you really deep dive?
Right.
Now that issue,
even
now
though
that issue isn't racism.
That.
Right. Now that issue isn't racism, which is why I still like, nah, this is racism. Like, it's not like, but again, back to humanity, people don't really, what's important to you might not be important to anybody else, and especially if it really just doesn't affect them. So we have to take it from that. Like, we think it's racism. It's literally the fundamental of I'm a human versus I'm not. It's bigger than, it's not about, this is not some disagreement, that you should have been able to ignore, but that is how they see it, because it's never affected them.
And you could tell the officer, when he was kneeling on George Floyd's neck, that he didn't deem him as human. Like, he was a roach, pretty much. George Floyd was a roach to him in his eyes, that he was just hitting, that he was just stepping on. So when we tell it just like, this is basic human rights, like, we're simply telling you, we're requesting, excuse me, could you not kill me? Could you not pull me over for no reason?
Like, arrest me. Even if it was like a ruffled up arrest, because ain't no arrest gonna be solid. Black people weren't contending that. You got, especially the ones that are caught on tape that we've seen, men were walking away, getting shot in their backs. They had their hands up, and you're still violently bludgeoning them. There is no excuse for it, right? So it's kind of like, with having all these other people going to protest, Black people, one, it's kind of like they're still on that. Like, why was this the reason? Why are you just now? And for a large part, we got to let it go, because we are right. Everything we're saying is right. Yeah, that is a legitimate question, but we already know the answer. That's the thing. Like, when we already know the answer, and this is my big thing about why Black people haven't really been able to really let go of the anger that's attached to discrimination and racism, and why we're so loud and we get so emotional, is because people have really yet to validate what we're saying. They make us feel like we're crazy, or they try to dismiss it or belittle it. Oh, that was just
Right.
that was so long ago.
Completely
Really, because
gaslight us. Yeah.
right, but really because my history book, the real history books show that Black people couldn't even sit where they were on the bus till 70s. That don't sound long ago to me. 64 wasn't that long ago. You got grandparents still alive. They don't sound long ago to me. People who were born in the 50s and the 40s, they still alive. It's not, if people are still alive, it wasn't that long ago.
It wasn't long ago.
It wasn't long ago. And so, and then now you're going back to Jim Crow, but I think we're going to have to, we can be able, we're going to have to keep that in house. And how will we deal with the others? Unless they are right then agitating us or trying to gaslight us, we really kind of just need to, like, you know what? I'm irritated because yes, I see you're here, but I'm still, it's still in my back of my mind. Like, why now? Why now? Like why? What was it about this? And it's kind of like we already know the answer to that. It wasn't important. They didn't focus. Like, just mind your own answer and like push through it, because like it or not, we are needing the broader. We don't have the numbers to do it by ourselves, and we didn't, because we didn't do it by ourselves the all the other times around, right? White people, abolitionists, all of them they helped critically in either keeping the important, especially keeping the important figureheads we know safe today. How many people hid Martin Luther King and hid these other civil rights activists? Like, they wouldn't have been alive if mothers weren't hiding like Anne Frank in houses. Like, that's exactly what they were doing, hiding in baseboards. So, but our generation, a struggle that's going to come up, especially when people that are outside of like a protest or a movement, because clout, you got to think, contemporary issues, which are still the same issues then, but it's bigger now because it's more widespread. The clout system, and all of those issues. Black people are gonna. I don't see them struggling yet, but they might have a struggle of like keeping the authority Black. Like, I'm seeing a lot of these speakers, but they're all Black so far, right? Now,
Sean King.
We're not. Sean King is so interesting to me because I see and read all this stuff, especially how he deals with Black people in the scamming, but he is the ear to the elite Blacks. They don't care, and so you need that money, you need that. So it's kind of like he's not going nowhere, and it's one of those things again. It goes back to that. How do we deal with this? You already know the truth. Use him for what you need to use him for. You can still stay on his neck, but there's no reason to be like shouting at them about it, because they know, sis. They just it's not important enough for them not to use him. He's already embedded himself enough. He got there first, like it or not. That's just the way it go. And if we want to be real about it, let's let that be his imperfection. Like cheating was Martin Luther King imperfection, and all homophobia was so and so's imperfection. You know what I'm saying? Like, people don't talk about it. Now we just talking about it.
Now we just talking about it. And
we just talking about
Sean King comes in an appearance that is welcoming for most whites. So he's not as threatening or at all. And a lot of people question his Blackness. So maybe that is the voice that we could use, take advantage of, and see what we could do in the meantime. There's a lot of like, okay, during this time, we should come together, collective. We should be together, fighting, voicing our concerns and demanding justice, all these things. And we have white people, many white people who are speaking up for us. But I'm still noticing that within our Black community, there is still this divide when it comes to how to protest, how to speak up, or even just how to speak your mind on this. I'm noticing there's just a divide between the elite and the working class Black people. And I'm just wondering why, like, where does that even come from? I think about the recent press conference that Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms of Atlanta said, and she pretty much berated the Black community. She blamed us, those in Atlanta, for the looting, the way that they are going about, their concerns and their aggression and their anger. And she's just saying, you going out there with your bottle of liquor, your brown paper bag, and just berating us, and particularly targeting us, and not instead of just saying outside agitators, because maybe it was Black people at that moment giving those looting, but instead of refocusing that energy to just, we're demanding justice because George Floyd should be the last case of this, because we're tired. This is more than enough. How many more can we endure to get our voices heard? Yet she's focusing on, let me just tell y'all that you guys are fucked up. You know, pretty much you're not upholding to the standard as Black person should in Atlanta. And then T.I. came on with Killer Mike and continuing to berate, seemingly so, in my opinion. But they're continuing to berate, and I feel like they're doing it because they have an attachment to all the stores there. They have this capitalistic pull that, okay, we can't have you guys burn up this place because we get money. So if you're doing that, I'm losing money. So I'm wondering, like, this divide, like, where is this? It's just so frustrating to me because I would say you coined this phrase, brunch blacks, because I've never heard it before. So when I saw you post that on your Instagram story, I was like, oh my God, that's so true. Like, can you just tell us, what is that? What's brunch black?
Brunch blacks, and it's it's literally not nothing new. Like, it sucks to keep having to say this, but in order for us to really, if we really want to solve the answer, I think we're just going to have to concede that this is where it comes from instead of trying to find all these other answers for it. It goes back to slavery. And it's not necessary. One, it's a human thing to find the differentiators between, because it's just a human thing for some people who need to feel higher than others. There is no kumbaya community race on this planet. It doesn't exist. But as far as Black people are specific, house niggas versus field niggas, privileges versus and what's part of that privilege is ownership, food that the house niggas, you know, got versus the field people getting more beat, right? And that is really where we can trace a lot of this contention as far as like, well, why is this divide? I don't know why Black people think they got to be a kumbaya race. There's literally no other race that's kumbaya. There's literally none. So what Keisha and like Killer Mike and T.I., Killer Mike was the only one I was really irritated about because he know better. And if you listen to a lot of his stuff, he knows what he's talking about. But you got to think about the agendas in the background, right? The divide, you can look, okay, so why is it this reaction versus this reaction? Okay, so like, how are they're seeing this? They're seeing this through agendas. People on the ground, people who don't own, who've never owned anything, especially a business, which is the prevailing, a lot of Black people, especially the younger Black people, they don't have any concept of, like caring, because their livelihoods aren't, they're consumers, caring about like a structure or a business, that isn't, they go to a regular 9 to 5 versus T.I. and Killer Mike. I'm not even talking about Keisha right quick. They have agendas because, like Keisha said, they own half of a side. So it does directly affect economic wise. Now, here's the thing about it that makes it, I won't never say it's wrong. If you got a business, your shit getting burnt up, I'm never going to tell you you wrong. You wrong for being mad about it. I'm just not going to do that because that doesn't make any sense. However, you got to understand the context of why people are dismissing it, because you're talking about a life. And especially if you don't go about it and talk about it the right way. Like, you know what, y'all? Being upfront about it. People just thought, why is Killer Mike and T.I. on here? And it took Keisha to expose that this because they own half of West Side. So if they had been like, look, y'all, I own half of West Side, and I understand why y'all out here, but I'm pleading with y'all, like, don't burn down my shit, because this is how I make my money. This is how I support my family. If they had have come that way, people would have taken it a lot differently. Right. Keisha, they had the agenda of, oh, because it's your brother, because to the other person, it feels like it's reading selfish. You only one person. You one person, you're holding the wealth. Are you that much different than the white people we're talking about? So you gotta get clear on how you identifying how your identity is being, especially with Black people. Because Black people not gonna hold no sauce for you just because you're Black. We'll light your ass up right up with Tim.
Okay, Terry Crews.
Listen, we will light you right up with Tim, because the moment you start identifying and sounding more like a white person versus a Black person, we will treat you like that. They will. And sometimes they be too quick on it, but are they really? All it does is, what it should be teaching is, you need to understand how you need to come across, because you are the minority. And so if you're you have to understand, you should understand, like, I need to figure out how I need to come across and make my case to Black people. So it can seem as like I'm part of what we say we want, economic justice. I'm, like, I've started that for myself, and these businesses are for y'all. Y'all are supporting Black business. This is, you got to remind people this is what we say we want. So you burning it down, it's not affecting me. There's a way you got to go about it, and it ain't just Black people got to do that. Anybody that wants to do that has a business has to do that. No, nobody's gonna. You gotta make it feel like, why is it worth it to me? Because to me, the people who were, now we're not talking about people who were looting for looting's sake, because you got to forget there was people who even showed up and probably looted later and didn't think about looting. It's 40 million people unemployed. Right. How you gonna have a busted window in Target and think ain't nobody gonna go up there? That's not realistic.
And we add
right?
that to the factor, yeah.
That's not realistic. That's just not gonna happen. But as far as like the majority, 90% of people did come to peacefully protest. And if you're gonna focus on the looting, like you said, now Keisha had different agendas too. She's a mayor. She is not just Black people's mayor. And we have to divulge from that. She ain't just Black people's mayor. And she has to appease all these other power structures under her. And I'm not saying that she's being forced. She could very much want to, because I saw her house. Right, there's a video of this lady outside her house, like, come outside, Keisha. We just want to talk. Yeah, they found her address.
Oh my gosh.
The police out there, and they're not stopping her because she's on.
Sounds like the purge. Sidewalk. Right.
And she's like, no, she's like, has a bullhorn, and she's calling her out. She was like, you wanted to be out here, basically what you're saying, talking about all Blacks like that. Now, if you think about Black people move towards Jim Crow, start thinking about when Black people start getting property, start thinking about the Rosewood, start thinking about Black Wall Street. There was definitely an elite class, Black Greek organizations, all of them were elite. The black bourgeois.
Bourgeois. Mm-hmm.
And there she's looking at you. I don't even know why Trina said some shit she's down there. But if you didn't know Trina, you would have thought she grew up that way, because that is how they are taught how to be Black, and since it's worked for them, right? They have certain successes. It's the correct way, right? So Keisha, I'm sure, has a long history of accolades and achievements, the standard ABCD, how she got to be mayor, right? And to her, only people who could be looting, even though it's probably somebody that's probably in college right now, busting those windows. She associated it with the ghetto stereotype, because they literally diverged themselves from that stereotype. Some of it is internalized because you kind of have to, if you're always the only Black in the room, and you're getting in this situation where a lot of white people, they'll test you, right? And you almost kind of not have to like denounce or try to prove that you're not that type of Black.
Right. I'm not that Black.
Just to get just to stop the microaggression.
Yeah.
Right. Just to be like, yo, I'm not that type of Black. I disapprove of that too. And you could disapprove of it, but it's like you said, it's how it's communicated. You as a mayor, 90% of this is peaceful protest. And so if you have to qualify things so that people will take it the right way. I know 90% of this is peaceful protest, but the 10% of you looters, you're causing a distraction. Like because people know looting wrong. Nobody, even though I say it's correct, because the effect that it gives, that pressure that it gives, that's why you got people donating their money. It ain't because nobody's walking kumbaya. And that's how we should have known just off rip. Maybe this isn't how they did it for civil rights, because they were way more violent then. Maybe they weren't just walking in kumbaya. Maybe there was something else behind it. And it was. There was violence all the time. Black people fought back a lot more. And that's where, we don't want to do that, one, because a lot of us are in more spaces with white people now. I can't tell you why T.I. said what he said, other than he owned businesses. I don't even know why he was a person that you would have thought to bring this. I'm sure there's a lot of other, but I'm thinking they thought because he's a rapper, he would attract that certain demographic that they already had assumed was looting. But then he didn't even come out and talk to them in the way that they would have heard it.
No, right.
He said some foolishness, so it still didn't make sense.
And it's just
how that strategy doesn't come across.
It doesn't make sense. And like, did you realize the shirt Killer Mike was wearing? Kill your masters, kill all masters, whatever it was. and then you're coming, like, what message are you giving us, an undercover message? What's happening here that you're the first one in our face telling us we got to strategize, mobilize? And I agree with that. Like, that makes sense to me. But in the same breath, like you're saying, there's a way to do it that doesn't demean those who are so frustrated and feel powerless. And you know what? I'm just going to blow shit up. Because one, I may have lost my job. I don't have enough money to raise my children and feed them. You know, the lights are out. Like, people are frustrated, and when you are focusing more on the 10%, because yes, it's a majority of people who are peaceful, who are doing it the quote unquote right way, but at this point I'm tired of the right way. Like, I'm tired of like politely asking to not be killed, to not be murdered, to not be raped, to not be just looked as dehuman, like dehumanized at all. Like, I'm tired of that. And there should be, like, and maybe this is wishful thinking, of course, but I wish there was a Black leader who would speak those words and do it in a way, of course, that's digestible, but that still hits the neck of what we're all feeling.
And that's where Martin Luther King came in, because any speech you read, any speech you hear, everything is hit. He hit. That's why it's like, you can even just listen, even if you want to believe all the things people say about him. But if you look, the speeches are there. The words are there. He hit economic justice. Ain't no, how you gonna ask somebody to pull up by their bootstraps? They ain't got no boots. Like, it, you know, you freed the slaves, but you freed them to what? They didn't have a land. They didn't have any land, so they had to go work on the land that they were slaves to, but still for free, because the owner said, "Well, we're not gonna pay you, but we'll let you stay in that house."
Like, okay.
So Killer Mike actually explained, because he was on. And if you haven't looked at you know, Shannon Sharp.
Yes, I have.
Shannon Sharp been going off.
Okay, I haven't checked those clips.
Especially since Drew Brees is what really started it. Well, he had a few, him and Shannon, who is it? Shannon and what's the white guy's name? Gosh, I can't remember his name. It's the Shannon and whatever. Yeah, okay. The white guy. And so Shannon, they have and you can look on his IGTV, and they're on there, all the clips.
Okay, I'm gonna check it out.
But so he got really into it, especially with the Drew Brees and the whole my grandfather's fault. And Shannon got real, because he was like, I didn't know only 2 white men fought won World War II, because I was pretty sure it was those Black men that were in segregated armies, and then when they came back, not only were they denied the rights and freedoms that they were promised, they were even killed, even though they served their country. So while you're talking about, you know, that whole thing, but they had Killer Mike on, and he was totally different from that Killer Mike you saw, which is why that's the thing that annoyed me at Killer Mike, because and nobody can be perfect. Nobody's going to always say, you're not going to always 100% agree. And he's one of those people for me. Like, there's some people where it's kind of like, Sean King, I'm not listening to shit he got to say. It really don't matter. He's not one, because he's not saying nothing that's no different than nobody else. He's just who certain people choose to disseminate the information. I'm not worried about him. But Killer Mike is one where it's like, dang, I really have to like at least give it 10 seconds to see it, because when he does say certain things, it is educating to me. So for that, he said, he was like, the white host was like, what's this kill your, because he wore the shirt. He said, kill your masters meant literally everybody. He's like, my master right now is sugar. Okay. And I'm trying to work on that, right? Like, kill your master is anything that is your master that has you in, you know, the fetus position, right, that you're a slave to. And then when you explain it like that, of course that makes sense, right? Absolutely. But you have to explain a type of shirt like that, especially when you decide to wear it to a press conference where you're literally saying you're being a black right now, and it's like, bro, but you got to kill your master shirt on. Like, I'm not understanding.
Like, which one is it?
And you can't afford disconnect like that. And that's what goes back to strategy. Like, we shouldn't have to ask. I think where we messed up is that we start asking in the first place. Like, Black people have always asked, because as human beings, we always think we get more with honey than vinegar. But when you're talking about people whose intention is to oppress you, it don't matter how nice you are. It doesn't matter that we had a Black president. It doesn't matter that most of the Blacks that you know have never harmed you, people will look for something if that is their intent to do so. I personally don't think not one white person is ignorant of racism or discrimination. Mm-hmm. I don't believe you need to read a book. I don't believe that they need a study guide. I don't believe that, oh my God, I didn't know it was this bad. I don't believe you. I don't believe you at all, because they have been in a situation where even if they were around their white friends, even if they never said the word nigga, I do believe there's a lot of people who have not said that word, but they've been around people who have said it, right? So this casting innards that you didn't know, and they flinch a little, or they hedge themselves, even when they listen to rap sound, even before they decide to say it, they say it in such a defiant way, like, I know I'm not supposed to say it, but I'm gonna say it anyway. It's never like, oh, this is just how I'm singing the song. It's always they have to, oh, we gonna say it, like, because at the fundamental of when we go back to fundamental, right is right, is wrong is wrong. A little child knows right. Now, when you get into more complex ideas, yes, but we're talking like we're still fighting for basic humanity right here. So when you see someone talk to someone, well, it doesn't matter if they call them nigger. They could have called them another word, but there is a tone, there is an expression that's used that conveys to you, hey, this is something that's not good. So it's not good. It doesn't matter if you say it's racism or not. So that's why it's racism, because then you see the dynamic, the context. Oh, it's a black person, it's a white person, da 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 da. And what white people have done, they have, instead of taking it at the face value, because that's what racism is, you don't need to really go deep into it. They decided to do that. Oh, well, we need more information. Well, we need to analyze the context. One, because it's distraction, and two, they don't want to believe about themselves, because for them it's hard to, just like it's hard for them to differentiate us. Like one black person does everything, and the whole black community.
Right, the whole they don't
want to feel about that the way that their own communities, right? If I admit that this one person is white being racist, what does that say about the one time that I almost said the N-word? Or what does that say about the one time, like a lot of it is just like, well, I can't qualify it as racist because there's I might be on the fence of shit.
Right. I might be racist. Oh my gosh. I might have done a racist
and that is it to a T.
So it's easier to play dumb.
We need more context. We need to. What about the details? This man got killed in the street. It doesn't even matter if he stole something, because why? The law says he was supposed to be arrested. There is a process. And they want to be like, well, but no. There is a process. Police do not have a right to kill you unless they legitimately afraid for their life. You just saw from this video, they were not doing that. So it becomes wrong the moment that they are beaten, and you see that the qualifier
on the ground, literally saying, I can't breathe, calling for their mother. That should be enough.
Yeah. You don't need to go no farther than that. It don't even matter what he did before it. It don't even matter if he beat the police up. You're not supposed to kill you until they're literally afraid for their life, not that they're afraid to get beat up. There's specific language in there. Now you're gonna get, that's why there's an assault officer charge. You hear me? Because if you beat them up, hey, you just got another charge, but it means you're still alive to get the charge. They can be, it doesn't mean that, oh, because I wasn't listening to you the way you wanted me to listen to you. Oh, because you can spit on their face. You can do all those things. And we know that to be true because we've seen white people get arrested on camera, and they do that. White people are the most violent confrontators to police you will ever see.
Aggressive.
And they will live.
They will still live, and they know that. So they weaponize that privilege, and they continue to scream in the face of the officers. Just a couple of weeks ago, we see footage of white people in front of officers yelling, "You're taking away our rights," just like speaking to the fact that they're still quarantined, that they're still, mandated to stay at home. And yet these officers are just standing still, not afraid of their lives, not afraid that they could possibly be hurt or killed. There's no neck. And they were speaking to white officers. It's not like it was just a difference of, no, it was particularly white officers, and they were standing still, unshaken. And it's just, the conversation now moves into the police has to change. What does police reform look like? What does demilitarize the police look like? What does defund the police look like? I'm hearing more of that conversation happening now. And I just recently watched a video on YouTube, and there's a lot of conversation. There's talk about that. What does that look like? And yes, there's apprehension to it, because it's like, well, what do you do to the murderers, the rapists, and child molesters and the pedophiles? That's a valid concern, but it's also about how can we change the society into a space where those people, those who those who violate us, how can we change the society into a space where they're not in a position to do so. Maybe we change the system in a way that distance those who have those mental illnesses or whatever you want to call it. Like, what does that look like? Because I know there's a lot of people not for it, and I'm particularly am for defunding the police and using those funds to other resources like education, like teachers and other sources, mental health. But
all the things that might make someone a criminal in the first place, right? You're being proactive.
Yeah. So then that will move into a space where police may not be necessary anymore because, we're putting money towards areas where we can have civilized human beings who wouldn't kill, who wouldn't rape, who wouldn't, who wouldn't do all these things. So what does that look like?
Well, I always say that ain't nothing new under the sun, right? And the reason why history is a big deal, because it's pretty much the things that the human conditions are the same human conditions that they were back then. We just have different contexts. We might have different tools we use, but it's the same on a psychological, like the fundamental levels, right? People who kill and murder people, if there's evil people, if there's people who are psychotic, if there's people who are schizophrenic or sociopath or pathological, and that's going to always exist, right? How did those people deal with that before the police? Because remember, police as a department, as we know, it didn't start until after Jim Crow, and after slavery was abolished, and they needed a way, not before Jim Crow, after slavery was abolished, and they needed a way to
keep Black people alive,
re-indenture Black people. So that's why they started to arrest them for petty crimes, for homelessness, right? And they're getting these obscene, because America has, if someone said something on a video, America has never been able to sustain itself without the blood, sweat, and tears of Black service. You've never had it. It's either been slavery or it's been prison. It literally switched. So, but hold on, what happened before then? What happened before you had the police? These issues, it might be people with mental illness. It might be people who even want to kill people and want to rape people and want to steal and want to burn down property. Those things were all happening. What did they do then? And how do we look at that foundation and say, okay, then how do we customize it? What are some things that we can, what's the framework of it? So maybe we don't need to have to kind of come up with something, probably, and the more modern people are, the more convoluted they want it to be. But when you're dealing with basic humans, a basic framework is the best. Like some people say, because you do need authority figures we do need departments that handle, right? What if someone hurts someone, beats someone, right? They just shouldn't all be one. And technically in the police department, they're technically not one. Right?
There's a special victims unit.
But they're not, but a lot of the funding is not shared the same way. So defund the police and defund them and refund them appropriately. You need money to operate any system, right? The problem is New York's NYPD has a $6 billion budget, and that's more than their healthcare, their workforce, their homelessness, and their child education system combined. That is a problem, because all of those issues, when you look at people that are going to be arrested, there are reactions from being deprived in one or multiple areas. So if you had a funded pre-K, we know from studies, if you get kids in between pre-K and third grade, because third grade is where they use to determine prisons, the prisoner pipeline, they start looking at those. If you get them in there, they have a higher trajectory, which is why people they force George Bush had that whole No Child Left Behind, because there are studies about it, right? Like if you are funding workforce initiatives and homelessness, and the reason why we shouldn't have nobody homeless, because there's more land and more houses that are vacant, right? If you look and retool and lay out, like, wow, okay, this is inadequate. It's not, there's no equity here, right? If healthcare, there's no equity there. Like people who have undiagnosed mental illnesses, they don't have the depression and anxiety. All of those things come from hormones. They're devoid in a serotonin hormone. They're devoid in this hormone. And there's why these medicines are there, because they literally plug in gaps so that they can be functional. You cannot expect a functioning person to act in a functional society, what we call what we deem society. They're going to follow the rules to survive in the way that they can, because that's their ability. And so if you want them to act in the ability that you have to provide them with the resources so they can stretch themselves. What people want to do, and this is with money or white people or people of color, I always say that, people with money, because money is a class by itself and it don't matter who you in there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then people who are white and people of color, because that's just how they are taught to look at Black people. They want you to, that's how they look at Black people, like, oh, that 1, 2, 3 Black person did it, why didn't you do it? Because for some reason, those people had abundance of resources to help them leapfrog over the challenges of all the inequities they had, and they made it. But there's a reason why it was only 1 out of 20. Right? And if they want Black people to be able to stretch outside of poverty. Stretch, how are you gonna ask the Black school in the impoverished neighborhood with the low tax, with low home values, so they have not that much money to go to schools, want their test scores to be bright, and half the kids, majority of the kids, most of their meals comes from the school.
Mm-hmm.
We already know if you're not nourished, you're not sleeping well, you don't have good test scores, because your cognitive ability is dysfunction. That's why I'm at a point, and I say this because I was, in my fellowship, I was doing research. I was doing research on the military and on specifically mental illness and suicidality and all this type of stuff. And working with my patients, majority of the time, when you have to peel back the onion, is what I call it, to find the root cause, because that's what you need to target to fix for you to see this massive change and improvement. It starts somewhere in their childhood or adolescence. Always. Yeah. I want to say 100% of the time. I'm going to give it 99 just to be safe, but 100% of the time. Yeah. That's what, and
I agree.
Forget the military issues. When I talk to them and we start talking about, okay, this happened. What happened before that? Well, what happened before that? Let's try to figure out where the first, oh, well, my daddy beat me when I was such and such. Mm-hmm. Oh, we didn't have no food, that is such and such.
Mm-hmm. My mama wasn't around. All
right. And so, I mean, specifically for the police department, what I heard and what makes sense to say there's not going to be any police department, it really just needs to be a rebranding. Probably not called the police department anymore. They just need to be separate departments, like there's separate departments everywhere else, and they need to have appropriate budgets for there needs to be a mental health task force where they have social workers and counselors, and maybe not full-fledged police officers, but like kind of like truancy officers, where they're trained to de-escalate with physically if they have to, because sometimes there are people who are mental patients and they get violent because they're not in their right mind. So you need someone trained to do that.
It doesn't mean that they need to be killed. You know?
That is the point. That white people take to extreme. You say we don't want to be killed. Oh, so you don't want to be protected. No, we don't want to be killed. You don't want to be killed.
It shouldn't be unclear.
Right. Like, why is it that your training is only to kill? One, that's not even your training. On paper, that's not their training. So why is this y'all underground training that they tell y'all? Because most professions do. Oh, don't worry about what's in that book. You gonna learn it the way we learn it
on the spot,
in the real world, on the spot.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's what
they was reading from the book. They wouldn't be doing. They wouldn't be killing folks.
Absolutely. And then it's like, when you do have cases when there's a homeless person on the street, or a person who's homeless who's on the street, and he's, he's acting, a little off, right? And you're unsettled with it. Instead of calling a police officer who would most likely think, oh, I'm gonna be aggressive, I'm gonna be hostile, how about we call, like you said, a mental health a professional, someone who
should be a hotline, just like it should be every single department should have a hotline like they have the police, or they should have one big dispatch, right? They can have just one dispatch, and the dispatch, like they say, oh, you have a fire, let me alert the fire department.
Right.
You need
a mental
SWAT,
health issue.
Let me alert SWAT.
Next
you have a mental health, and I think to a point they do that, right? When they get when they get the report, it's just that, once again, the resources are not allocated, even with the NYPD has a $6 billion budget, but most of it's going to homicide and drug war. They don't have budgets for domestic violence and rape kits. That's why rape kits are backed up 6-9 years. Like all of those they're not getting that money. So you're going to have to dealienate them, because you cannot trust people to share the wealth on their own. You have to decentralize it. And that's the point. There's too centralized. You need to decentralize it, like we do the House, like we do the Senate, and like like I said, it's been done before. The founding fathers, as racist as they knew about power. They knew about human behavior. And that's why it says, oh, the president is this one, you're the executive orders, but you're really more of a figurehead. You might can override some shit, but really it's the House, and this is the order. This is where y'all focus your energies, because when it's smart, people need to have a subject matter to be expert in, and because they're going to become more familiar, more trained in it. They're going to have more exposure to situations that revolve around it, so that their knowledge base grows just outside of what's in a book, right? If you have 10 years, when people say, that's why businesses always put, oh, we've been in here for 15 years or 20 years, because it signifies to the consumer that they have that much experience on a scale that they probably encountered so many different situations that they're the right person to handle my unique situation. And it's because they have this one lane, like child protective services, like that's its own
specific
department. But one, it doesn't have
resources for that. Yeah,
they do not. Why wouldn't you? Why we know kids are the future. You have to start when especially when you're trying to program or help anything with, because it's all about human development. Human development starts as a child. That's why we need to focus our resources there. Not that we don't need to have any resources for adulthood or senior, because you do, but it's because they are more malleable.
Yeah.
People know that, because when they want to do something bad, they go straight to the children. But or they want to hurt you in a certain way, they go straight to the children. So
childhood trauma continues to rear its ugly head in your adulthood if it's not managed correctly.
And then, but you can't. It's once your brain gets settled. What is it? 27. When your brain gets, like your cells are all, unless you have some type of neural disease, they're regenerating. They're making new connections and networks, but they're happening at such a rate during your childhood and formative years that it doesn't compare to when you're adult. So yeah, you can change, but you have to think about how the brain. Is it an easy process for the brain to break those links, break those schematics, those schemas that you've already learned, and that have all these different experiences built upon, that you have to now forget your habits, versus don't learn them that way in the first place, or
right.
when it first happens, let's wipe that off the board and put in a new process.
Right. I'm noticing now during this time where we're seeing a lot of celebrities kind of showing their asses, and it's giving more of this cancel culture and more fuel. Just this past week, I've noticed when it comes with B. Simone or Desi Banks, and recently Terry Crews, who are now just not in full support of all the actions that Black people are doing to fight for their rights. So Desi was on the position of, we shouldn't be violent. We shouldn't be looting. We shouldn't be doing that. B. Simone is on the point of, well, I'm a child of God, and I don't want to be that angry Black woman. I'm doing what God tells me to do. I listen to what would Jesus say, what would Jesus ask for me to do. And that just brings me to, there's a lot of ignorance when it comes to Christianity, when it comes to Jesus. I feel like a lot of people have this passive aggressive perception of Jesus. Oh, he just right? He was crucified.
Jesus was flipping over tables.
Right. Like, Jesus was revolutionary. Jesus was that nigga. And I'm sorry that's offensive to some people, but he really was. He spoke up. He flipped the table, like you said. He was mad when people were selling things, merchandise in his father's house, and he flipped the damn table. So when you are choosing to silence yourself and to silence others by saying, well, Jesus wouldn't do that. You got to be nice and sweet and be this quote unquote good girl. And yet you're somewhat and I'm not here to like say she's a hypocrite, because, well, how is she a Christian? Because she's drinking. Well, I don't think she drinks, but she's twerking, she's on Instagram half naked, but I don't really care about that. The point is, don't misrepresent who Jesus was and use that to your advantage. Like, just say you don't want to speak up about it because you don't have shit to say. Like, just say that. just be mute.
Right.
No, like, can we not use Jesus in this when you're not using him correctly?
Mm-hmm.
What's your take on that? Because I'm just like
Here's the
baffled.
thing. Black people are the best at our memory's long. And one, you gotta know. One is I don't follow nobody saying nothing to them, because by now everybody knows Twitter. Unless you not black, because there'd be some people of color that know. Black Twitter is a very dish you. Or you should dish you. They will pull up receipts.
Okay.
It don't matter if it's
2009.
not. You gotta
said
be sure.
this.
Listen, because so that is literally how Black Twitter functions. It is a big part of the culture. So if you go on there and talk reckless, one, you ask for it. Two, there's an entitlement because you thought for some reason you weren't going to. One, it lacks introspection. Like, so say B. Simone. Let's say B. Simone. B. Simone, when Black people get offended and it doesn't match up, there's a big like, hold on, this is we're not under, we can't even hear your message because it lacks all type of like common sense. When you say, one, you're trying to do a signaler, that whole angry Black woman, who brought that up? What you're doing is trying to signify, oh, people who are looting have to be angry Black women. When they could, one, what if they are? You're putting it in a negative light, and you're dismissing their anger when they're they're angry because someone died. You see, it's just like, how did that make sense? Even if you felt like that's not how you reacted to it, not everybody reacts with anger. Maybe you acted with solemn, and maybe you're going to a more meditative space.
Yeah.
But you didn't have to bring them up to make, when you do a compare contrast, you're doing it for a reason. Mm-hmm. Black people not gonna let you skate like you didn't know. Black people are like, you're not ignorant to it. You know better, especially because B. Simone is a very vocal person. Right. She's very out there and try to be like,
and she plays the role of Black woman, ghetto Black woman.
And that's why they got on her ass, because you made your money. And that's the same issue with Des. His whole sniff is ghetto Black boy, hood Black boy. This is how it goes. And then you trying to get on here like you're trying to be a
peacemaker.
But you couldn't have gotten where you got. You couldn't have got that 1 million, B. Simone, because you know who gave you that 1 million? The friends that you couldn't pay because they was ghetto. But they were ghetto too, right? Because there's nothing wrong with being ghetto and wretched, right? Mm-hmm. Those friends and all those women, that the ghetto women that identify with their ghetto-ness, bought your book. Des Baker, a lot of those hood diggers were the ones who co-signed you.
Yep.
There's no way on earth that you can then come out and try to, oh, I'm not an angry Black person. This is how God wants me. God, what happened when God was using you the other day? Because people start pulling up pictures of her twerking, all that stuff. Now, I get into that because there's not one way to be a Christian, and Christianity and what's the right way, it gets so convoluted. I don't want to talk about it no more. But it would have been different if she hadn't brought up Jesus. There were multiple things. One, you made you. How are you gonna try to be something different now when before today you were this angry Black person we were talking about? People that don't like you because you're loud. That is their number one. Guys be like, oh, she's so loud, she's annoying.
People would, let me just say this, people would see a picture of her and they'll be like, oh, it's too loud.
Right. Now this came out left because he's funny. He never been problematic. And so one, people were shocked. And then it went to the same issue. Okay, this is who you say you are, we're gonna back it up. And they do this with other Twitters too. It's not just celebrities. They literally do it to everybody. If you have a big enough following and engagement. Now, with Ted Cruz, he's a muscle offender because he used Black community and his Blackness and he knows what it means to be defiled by a white person intimately. Right. You got your ass on Twitter, and Black women out of everybody. Not that I don't think he was differentiating Black women and Black men in this particular post, but like say the Gabrielle Union whole debacle where he wasn't supporting her and sticking up for her, right? Like they rallied around you because you needed it. You wouldn't have even got the press you got if it wasn't for Black Twitter. They would have you would have said that shit in the ether. Mm-hmm. And so now you come on, and what he tried to say, so what he said was like,
Black
Oh, you know,
supremacy, or is it?
black, no, but one, it doesn't exist. So when you have a platform, you gotta be real careful. You don't get to just say whatever, because there's a group of people, especially white people, that waiting to use you as a legitimizer on some bullshit. And black supremacy doesn't exist. No one, no, not even on the ratchetness of black Twitter. They might be in like some, if they said some shit like, hey, maybe it's our time to like get some privilege, whatever. So like Terry, the issue was he brung up this black supremacy issue, and people were mad because he has a big white audience. It's like, it was totally misrepresentative of what anybody's trying to do. They're not going to this protest demanding that black people now own white people, or black people, it's black people's turn. Nobody has said that. It hasn't even been a thing, not even a big joke, like at all. They literally been saying, please stop killing us. Please make sure we're getting the right salaries as our white counterparts. Please hire more black people. Like, they have literally been like, we don't want to take over. We just want to share in the equity. Every single message. There's nothing he can point to, no article, no video, no nothing that said anything about black supremacy. So he said it to be an agitator. And he said it on some cool there was literally no reason. And then too, when people were getting on his ass, other celebrities like Godfrey, like all them were like, everybody hates Chris, that dude. They were like, bruh, not it. And he was like, well, what I mean is, like, you say one thing and then black people decide and you can't be black. How can that be?
Right. And
like,
I want to go ahead and read this quote.
Grown man.
Right. I want to read this tweet verbatim, because this is how it all spiraled. So he starts off by saying, defeating white supremacy without white people creates black supremacy, which is obviously not true, which is not even real. It's not a real thing. Equality is the truth. Like it or not, we are all in this together. So, of course, he's getting all this backlash because what the fuck are you saying? Black supremacy is not real. He then goes on to, he then moves the needle somewhere totally.
The goalpost.
Yeah,
the goalpost,
totally
yeah.
Goalpost.
No, that's not what he meant at all.
Right. I understand, Tyler. I was not saying black supremacy exists, because it doesn't. I am saying if both black and whites don't continue to work together, bad attitude. Not that one. There was something else. There was a...
No, that's a big one. That's a big one. The bad attitude a big one. Was a big one.
The attitude. But he said another tweet about specifically being not black enough, being considered not black enough, and feeling like who does the measurements of that. So, and that's a whole, like, that's not
but
the point.
That was his real issue.
That was, so like, started with that.
He didn't because it wouldn't have got no attention. He didn't because he knew what he was doing. Because as soon as Tyler and Godfrey said, he switched right to that message. It didn't take him no time to get there. He didn't do like, upon reflection, this is what I meant. Right. He went right to, well, I'm talking about, black people start calling me black. I'm like, first of all, you can't sit here and say, if black people solve their own issue, then that means that we're going to be up and we shouldn't do that. First of all, that's a ridiculous statement. Even if it was possible for black supremacy, what do you look like as a black person telling black people who have suffered for 450 years that how dare you ask for a turn at the top? You shouldn't even ascribe to it. That's going to be bad. Even if, you know what I'm saying? Like, you just shouldn't say that as a black person, because what you're trying to say is we would never deserve. Like, damn, do we not deserve? Maybe we do deserve a turn. Like, no one is even talking about it, but the fact that you would, let's say if we want to say that could be a possibility, why the hell are you trying to why shouldn't we get a turn? Why is it bad that we get a turn? Then you go to the bad attitude, and that's when I knew. He was trying to create that distance again. He was basically mad. You can tell in the background, so like, where did this come from, bro? Someone you was talking to and I was talking to you, you felt like they handled it with a bad attitude. Now, we know when there's anything with to do with an attitude and it's bad about a black person, that they dog.
That's a trigger. That's a trigger. Right.
Because it is a microaggression. Absolutely. It is a straight microaggression. He had black Republicans who are not just Republican, right? Because I don't really have any issue with Republican in what the actual framework outside racism, right? Because black people were the original Republicans. Right. Black people are very Republican. I don't think that you're either a Republican or a Democrat. With everything else, it's intersection. You're both.
I need to learn. Subscribe. How did that switch happen? I need to do my research, because
I think it was LBJ. I think it was LBJ and the Civil Rights Act, or something happened with Dixiecrats, or maybe it was Lincoln. It was one of them pivotal moments. I have to Google it too, where they did a switch, because Republicans start being racist. And the
Mm-hmm.
Democrats at the time weren't as racist. And
So it's safer to go.
they started politicking more on like social issues and justice and social programs and what, things that's going to help the Black community. So that's when like they did the switch. But that was a dog whistle. So now it's like, okay, well, who has these bad attitudes? Black people have bad attitudes, because he literally says, if we can't allow bad attitudes. He didn't even say Black, but he did it either or. So if the white people are these people, you say white people and then you say bad attitudes, who else could the bad attitudes be attributed to? And then he goes to what he really wanted to talk about was the coon comment. Now, I would have thought, yes, we would have. I didn't see nobody call him a coon until after. And you know what? He might have been even thinking this might be, what's it called? Continued from the whole Gabrielle Union debacle when she got, because that whole thing went off on America's Most Talent, and he basically was acting like I didn't see nothing.
Threw her under the bus.
Then they start calling him a coon. Nobody just off the flip called him a coon. And when Black people call you a coon, it's because not even that you have different interests. It's because you are aligning directly with the white interest, and you don't get no
And that's what benefit. It is.
You get zero benefit. You are a policeman for white people, because it's not that, oh, Terry, you're getting a benefit from this outside of, okay, maybe you didn't want to jeopardize your job.
Right.
But that's not how you said it.
Mm-hmm.
Black people are so forgiving. They understand the game you got to play. That's why when people get lit up, it's not because Black people didn't think it through. Black people understand the roles and the hills you got to go through and how you got to take things. But you said that shit like, I don't know that bitch.
Like, as if Gabrielle, like, made it up. Like, as if, what are you talking about? There's so much diversity in this show. Like, in all my life in Hollywood, I've been in this game for 20 plus years. I've never experienced racism. It's like, nigga, what? Come on.
You just somebody grabbed your shit at a like, what are you talking about? So, and then he went on, there was another tweet about the football players and how he's happy that they're saying all the little videos now. But he said, I retired from football 26 years ago, and it was racist. And all the other stuff. I thought you didn't speak racism. I thought it wasn't there. So if he was mad at Black people calling him a coon, which that is the argument. Black people call people coons a lot. And sometimes there are Black people. That's just a thing that that's an intra-community. Yes. It's an intra-community thing. Why you should have put Black Twitter in the hashtag. Y'all like, why do we call people coon that have different opinion than us? That could have been a legit conversation, because you know why? Because I see that conversation every day. Terry, you're not the only person getting called a coon. People, that is a literal action. Like, when they don't see you getting any benefit from doing that, that means you are aligning straight with the white people. So you're just trying to police them, bro. What you even getting out of this? Yeah. And why do you think that you can shit on the entire, like, this populace of Black people just so we can let you, the one person, get the benefit? You thought that shit's gonna fly? Because what you need to know is, if no matter how much money you got, you can't replicate community. Which is why there's an issue with you being called a coon in the first place, right? Because it pushes you out of the richness of the community. You're not in the inside jokes no more. We're not. The engagement between Black people is a special thing.
So I might as well go ahead and tap dance for these white folks, because
hey, it's a special thing, and that's why you can't have it both. And that was the whole thing with Terry. It's like, where did you come from? That was really, it was just like, wow, what was the reason? Like, he didn't link nothing. At least when the white people do it, they be trying to link a video. Now, it'd be out of context, and people gonna find out and be like, bro, that's not even what happened. But at least they had, like, you can see, like, where they got it from. Terry just came up here with some Black supremacy. It's like, I've never even seen the word Black supremacy, Max. I'm not even lying to you. I've never seen it.
Me neither. That's why everyone was like, please delete this. Delete it right now. Delete this. Like, that's not even in alignment.
I've never seen the term.
I just think that I noticed that there's a trend of these coons who are cooning, tap dancing for the white folks, super in support of Trump, MAGA all day. I realized that many of them, when I think of Terry, when I think of Candace Owens, they have had traumatic experience with Black people. I was watching this interview with Candace Owens on Joe Rogan podcast, and she was talking about how she's completely disconnected from her family, her Black family. And
I was surprised. I honestly thought that she was connected with them.
No, completely disconnected from them. She has a very distorted, just dysfunctional relationship with her family. And this is something that, the way that she described it, it was as if this has been a thing since her childhood, or at least teenage years, not recent. It wasn't like in reaction to her support of Trump. It was prior to that. And I think something of that sort, when you have trauma with your own community, it feels like you were saying earlier, like, okay, well, I don't fit in here.
You gotta fit somewhere.
I gotta fit in somewhere, and hey, this other area is a gatekeeper for me. So
and
now
they want me, and they give me power,
and they give me power. I have money now. Hey, I'm flexing on you hoes. Oh,
and
now
I
you
can be a little retribution to my Black family that didn't want me or didn't support me like I thought.
Yep.
I honestly, for real, I knew she made a white person.
I see a correlation. Yeah, she married a white man.
I knew that obviously some Black people weren't going to chill with her, but I thought that, like, oh, her family, in my mind, I was like, oh, her family must be cool with this because she's super confident in
it. Super confident.
I don't believe there's cancel culture, going back to your thing. I call it pause culture, timeout culture.
Yeah.
Because
what does it look like, though, because can you really cancel a quote unquote a Chris Brown, even though people have their real reservations on him, which is okay, cool, valid. But is there more leeway to cancel a social media influencer who gained all this notoriety because of us?
Yes, because what about the one where their direct compensation, right? This is why Black people can't be racist. I didn't learn the tiers until I was in masters, right? But now that I know them, I'd be like, y'all, Google. It's discrimination, prejudice, oppression, racism at the top, because it's the only one that requires a power structure. Meaning, if cancel culture was real, and Black people, because Black people are the architects of the cancel culture, right? And in the modern way that we know it, we're not the only ones who have ever like gone against somebody because they did something we didn't like that was famous, right? But there's a movement that we're the architects of. Then they would not come back, because the whole point of it is to affect your livelihood. You no longer get to have this privilege because we recognize that we're the ones who give it to you, in a sense, and you said something angry, and you don't get to have it no more. So we're gonna take it back. Now, why I call it pause and time out culture, because they do see an effect from it, right? There is, Chris Brown saw his effect. It took him a couple of years. Anybody who's ever had a negative, even people still lying for R. Kelly, right? Like the DJ's like, damn, I really want to play his song because I like his song. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, he's still gonna be getting these royalties and what's that? Because it's a timeout culture. Now, you got to understand though, like with everything, there's a hierarchy. That's why there's A-list, B-list, C-list. C-list can't do what A-list do, because you don't have enough power to survive the timeout, to survive the blow. Instagram influencers, period, your main source of income is engagement with this medium. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Meaning it's these people on the internet, not people that you can go touch. Yeah, they might have tours and stuff like that, but if that still went away, they would still have their main audience, because that's where the people who are coming on those tours are people who have been still engaged primarily with the social media aspect. It's not some random person who's not engaged with social media, just like, oh, let me go watch Amanda Seals on this, or let me go watch, Chris and the other boy, or let me go watch Dez or Oh Girl. Like, yeah, you got a book deal, but you got that off of how they leveraged your engagement on social media, which is why there's the Just Hilarious girl.
Yes.
So when she came out with her little Instagram yesterday about cancel culture, why the hell? She literally said out her mouth, if we cancel everybody, who we gonna have left? And you know what people said? Nigga, nobody. We don't need you. That is where you need to understand where you're needed. Your proximity. Your proximity with the La La Land has you confused.
Yeah.
Because you forget where your talent lies. And I'm not discrediting the talent. It takes a talent to get any type of following. I don't care how stupid I think it is, right? But it takes you can't be then stupid to this. Social media dismantles in a microsecond. What you mean? So Black people, especially when they got money, you have this entitlement to think that we have to accept a direct offense to us, and just because you Black, and just because it's not many of y'all, we gonna let you fly. Because here's the thing, there's so many Black people that's waiting to make it. We only allow them 40 at a time, bitch. We ready to get you off. You know why? Because your humor just hilarious is not unique. Yeah. It's unique in the moment. Yeah. And the only reason you're still up and this other girl that's been right behind you, but she couldn't get there because you're occupying the space that for some reason we only let one person in at a time. So we already got somebody lined up. There's so many talented Black people. We already got somebody lined up. So there is not gonna be a nobody. Sis, we got a line ready for you. We're just letting you stay there because of longevity. You ain't dead nothing, and that's a privilege. Like when Dez hit his, all on Twitter was these people, the Black guys are saying, I'm just making up some names, Tommy and Jerry, waiting for their chance to scoot in. It's these other two Black guys who do similar things to Dez, and they're kind of popular, they're not as popular as him. And so their memes were, they wait in the wings. Yep. They're looking at him for
their like, opportunity.
Yo, it's my time. That is exactly what it is. And that's what Black people is like. We will scorch earth before we let you get away with shitting on us in any way. And that is the thing. We will have nobody. That is the truth. We literally will have nobody. You think that's stupid because you're the one that's trying to get booted. But if you was on the other side of it, you wouldn't be thinking that's stupid.
Now, to end us off, I do want to hear your take on, because yet again, there is divisiveness within the community, within the Black community, and particularly when I look at Black Lives Matter, I'm noticing there's subcultures in that feels unheard. So a lot of people are saying on Instagram, on social media accounts, they're saying, well, what about Black trans lives? What about Black queer lives? What about affirming those lives? And I saw a tweet the other day, and it says, this is from the Hood Healer on Instagram and on Twitter. It says, you're Black before you're gay. And of course, she got a lot of backlash for that. But I just want to give a perspective on this that is not to be offensive, but is to open the eyes of how, quote unquote, the oppressor sees us. So
exactly.
So like when we're driving, when we're walking, when we're studying, when we're jogging while Black, we're not anything else in that moment but Black, apparently. Obviously, you know what I mean? Like, you obviously see my skin color, but you can't see my sexual orientation, you can't see my gender identity, you can't see that until you have a conversation with me, you know, unless you make your assumptions, etc., etc. But the point is, your Blackness is obvious, it's apparent, it's there. So there is just this outcry of wanting to be seen, and I hear that, and I don't want to discredit them for not feeling seen, and I think there's space for that, but I don't want it to be this oppression Olympics. Like, can we not do this? Like, we all have our own. I could go ahead and say, what about Haitian lives matter? What about Trinidadian lives? Like, it's not like, it doesn't do much for me to say that. We can't have these conversations, but when we're in front of the legislators, the policymakers, can we not show more divisiveness and just say Black, like all Black lives matter? That makes it better. That makes it, you know, sugarcoat. But it's just, there's just this what is it, like this ice, you know, you're walking on icy lane, you're walking on sculptures or whatever, because we can't talk negatively about sexuality, about sexual preferences, all of that, when it's just the God honest truth. When you're in the streets, you're Black, period. You know, so what's your take on that?
I totally agree. I think with Black people, like I said, it goes back to the very first point. We have to conserve our energy and be focused, especially when we're dealing with other people, because they're not really going to care. They're like, look, in real life, we can do one thing at a time. Not technically one thing at a time, right? Because the Civil Rights Act it's a civil rights act. It wasn't civil rights for women, civil rights for here, civil rights for that. Like, the way that they do bills is an umbrella, and you're supposed to be all encompassing under it, because it's the premise that if we get things for Black lives, you automatically benefit regardless of what you secondly identify with. Your others, you're Black, so you get whatever privilege comes along with it. So that's why we have to pick. We're championing the Black Lives Matter, because it is the way the message is literally says Black lives. It's inclusive in its statement. Black lives. It doesn't say straight Black lives. That's what That's what people are perceiving based on who they're following, and they're seeing how their followers, their people that in their circle are not paying attention to this sub-identity. And the thing is too, it's like on second thought too, it's like you say, like even if someone was super flamboyant, you still have to have the question of if they could be or they couldn't be. The fact that you have to take a second step in a second means that first, not how you see yourself. It's not about, they don't make policy on how you see yourself, because if it was up to how you see yourself, you wouldn't be oppressing yourself. It is made for others. It is their blueprint on what they can do and how they interact with you, what privileges you have, what privileges you don't, which is why, and she was completely right. People are just very hypersensitive right now. Our culture, our generations are very, you're going to hear us. We're not going to be shamed for who we are. We want to live full lives and for who we are. And I think that's where the motivation comes with it. But I say about this too, I don't see a lot of them. Are you championing not only in the Black lives community, but what about the regular trans community, right? The white ones, the gay community, because they shut them out and they don't respect. So they feel like, and they do have more power in the Black community as far as agency wise, but they don't get it because they're gay, they get it from their Black. So you gotta, like, if I reverse engineer it, right? You say, oh, well, I'm not Black first. I'm like, okay, well, if you were just around white people, and you're not getting, if it was just this one big trans movement, but they don't, historically and contemporarily, are not championing trans rights in a way that applies to you as a Black person, the difference is because it's your Black. Because Blackness, you experience life in a different way. Not because you're trans. Y'all probably have similar trans issues, but what makes your trans issue unique is your Blackness. Not the transness, your Blackness. That's literally how I've heard them advocate for themselves. Because I'm Black, I can't even go to these trans clubs. Because I'm Black, not because I'm trans, because I wear different trans dress. It has nothing. It's always because you're Black. So if you reverse engineer they're oh well, I'm both. Okay, but it's not about what you are both. It's what you are. The majority of where your agency is for other people for power is going to be from your Blackness, because you're already in a minority of a minority. And the bigger majority for you is your Blackness. Like, just like the bigger majority for them is your whiteness, which is why, yeah, gay people are oppressed, but white gay men are some of the richest men on this planet.
Get the gatekeepers.
Right? Their intersectionality allows them. Yeah, they still feel oppression, but white gay men does not feel oppression in the same way another gay person is, and their gayness is not. The things that they deal with because of their gayness are very similar. Where it diverts is that the whiteness, the maleness, the whiteness, the femaleness, right? Like with trans, y'all still kind of have, like, there's still a debate about like sexuality and female versus male, and those, it's not, like you said, it's not about those things not being important. It's about one strategy in what we're fighting for, right? If it was, I have no doubt, if it was George was trans, then trans rights in this moment would be on par with the Black Lives Matter. Hell, it might have been, they might have said trans something first, but that's not how it happened, right? So that is, if they're, most of them are asking for this moment, and I can get why, right? Like, when you see momentum somewhere, when you want awareness, you need to hop on it. And that's what they've done. But what, like you said, don't then turn it into some devices, or you don't care. Well, actually, they got a point. Black people, just like every other race, they have homophobes, very homophobic. Trace that back to Christianity. They're not the only ones. It's not unique to race. It is a human thing. When people getting castrated and oppressed the way they do here, think about how they're getting in India. Think about how they're getting in over here and over here. How they do females in India, mutilating their genitals, selling themselves. It's not a Black thing. It's a human thing. And one thing with Black people is you cannot expect more from you because you're deeming it, as we're Black. And maybe because we have such a resiliency and a strength that it seems like we believe our own stereotype that we're strong enough. We're stronger in our superhuman strength.
That we don't feel pain the same way, or
right. That we should be able to handle these 5 huge issues. Trans rights is a huge issue. You're not going to be able to balance them at the same time. It has to be trickle effect. And it would actually be smarter, because if you were solving the Black Lives Matter, the privileges that come under that umbrella naturally are going to splinter off. And that means when you get down to trans rights, a lot of the issues you had are going to be already have support for them because they were solved from the umbrella. Now you can focus more on the micro level of the specific intersections of, let's get down to the nitty gritty. So strategy wise, it makes sense to go from the umbrella. We're starting from scratch, even though we've been having the same fight. It's been different generations, and so we have to start. Civil rights wasn't out here burning down towns like slavery revolts. There's always a difference. So it always feels like that's a lot of reason why we don't have a lot of progress, and a lot of reason why it kind of feels like this. People are getting just tired. It's like, dang, it's still it doesn't feel any change. Like, well, yes, you're not getting whipped in the street, so it is a legitimate change. But I completely agree with you in Hood, the Hood Oracle, or whatever her name was.
The
like,
Hood
she
Healer,
is.
yeah.
It's just that people are hypersensitive, and it's not I try not to take a moral good or bad, because I always put myself in, well, damn, if I was identifying as that person, how would I feel if someone dismissed this because it is a minority? I wouldn't feel it. I would be hypersensitive as well, because it's just a human thing to be. When you identify someone, it hits you in the heart, you going all the way for it. It don't matter that nobody else. It is important. So anything to the contrary is just not going to be productive. But in this movement, like I said, if we can just take a breath. And Black people also, I feel like there's a sense of, we got to get it now. Like, this movement's gonna end. It's gonna end in 3 weeks.
Put in the
we got to
microwave.
get it right now.
Let's go. Right.
Exactly. And so, if it's kind of like, it's hard to take that step back, a reaction, because things are changing, moving so fast. But we don't have that luxury to not. We either have to do it ourselves, we have to be accountable. And then when somebody does say something, we got to be like, I know I'm answering this place, I'm right, but is it the right time? And that sounds bad, but it is how it is. Like, it's antithesis to what I said to the whole cancel culture thing, where it's like, well, if we cancel everybody, would we have nobody? I'm like, oh yeah, we'll have nobody. But it's opposite when you're talking about movements, but simply because you're talking about a whole populace, we can't just cancel out. We can't be so headstrong on every single thing that we get nothing done.
Right.
That can't be the system.
It can't. And let's just be honest here. I think there is, at least it looks like to me, that there is more acceptance of the LGBTQIA plus community in society than there is of Black lives. I think that when we have the rights the bill passed and for gays to be able to marry each other, that was a great hoorah, right? And that was more access, more stepping in the ladder, social ladder for that community, while we have so many Black lives still being killed and no justice being done for that. So it's a context. And then I wonder, like, okay, does that explain why? Because I know a couple of Black gay men who will wear their sexuality more than they would their struggle as a Black man, period. Like, like, obviously they can't take away their skin color, right? But they are wearing more of their sexuality than they are their Blackness, if that makes sense. So it's like, of course, they're not going to speak up when it's just Black lives. I just want to talk about Black trans lives. I just want to talk about Black gay lives, because this is my way into the elite. This is my way.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
And
it's the signifier, right? Just like people need goddamn Gucci belts, even though that doesn't even signify. It doesn't even signify you for the real Gucci belt community. What it does, though, it makes a subculture. Because think about everything people do, Maxine, is to belong,
right?
To find community, to find love, to find acceptance. Period. The end. When Jesus talking about it's all about love, it really is all about love. That is the driving factor. You want to know that? Because that's how we were made. Like, I don't want to hear nothing about evolution and God's real. Because, like, look, we're so human. We're these species of people. That is literally like the driving force. If it comes down to, we need community, we need relationships, we need to belong, we need to be accepted. So they make these subcultures. Then you got a Gucci belt community. And that signifies to people, it's because people have schemas on, if I see this, this is how I should treat this person. And everybody has it, right? So for the gay community, like you said, was a good point. And you got to think about like where that community is celebrated, in what industries it's celebrated, celebrity culture, hairstylists, makeup artists, where they dominate, and they have to dress the part because literally it's more out, because that's part of the celebrity culture, right? Like, or, you know, even if, you know, you have the ones who are real estate or in that like Silicon Valley, they're gonna look more Silicon Valley gay than they would, because there's power and there's community there. Because in the base of the just a regular black community, you know what people are gonna look at you like? A black person. They're gonna know you're gay. And there are people who will, there is legitimate violence. There was that video of that girl, one of the ones that actually got the trans rights in the forefront of this movement anyway, is because that girl, I can't remember her name, got beat up in a beauty supply store because she was gay. That's when that was really what the push, and it was like it was her, and there was another one that got killed, like right after George. And then what I don't like is they say, well, y'all not talking about trans rights. It should be like, hey, I don't know if y'all knew, but this trans person, it should have you the benefit of the doubt that we're not oppressed, like we're not caring because she's trans. We didn't know. Everybody's focused on George. I retweet found petitions for everybody, regardless if I'm like, I don't deep dive into, I don't know anybody that's trans, but I have a basic philosophy that you can be with the hell, as long as you're not harming nobody else. You can be what you want to be. Have sex with you want to be. I don't even need to have a conversation about it, Maxine. I don't need to talk about philosophy. I don't even talk about how I feel about it. You know why? Because it's about you.
Right.
Like I just, my qualifier was, as long as it's not hurting nobody else.
Yeah.
And most of them don't. Like your sexuality is not hurting nobody else. You and y'all are doing, you know, like y'all doing what y'all want to do. I don't need to know nothing about it. If you want to tell me, I'm cool too. I don't feel necessarily weirded out. Some people do, but it's still, you know, they still have the mindset of like, bruh, that's your life. If you feel like you can't live, my philosophy is I want everybody to live. So hey, if I got to sign a petition for this, petition for it. Now, are you gonna see me in the streets trans right? Probably not. But if you, for anything else, you know, that's more the commitment of like how much and what type of ways I want to engage. It has nothing to do with like, hey, the basic question, do you support trans rights? Yes.
Right.
Because, you know, like, because you're human. Like, all you telling me is, do you support my right to live the way I want to live? That is literally the statement. That's the statement I hear.
Actually, no, like that's not.
Yeah.
No.
And that is what a lot of people are saying, right? Like where the violence is coming from. But outside of the violence, because just like there's violence in there, there's also most black people are gay people in their family. Right. And it might be a struggle, right? Just like it's a struggle if somebody has a serious mental illness, because you're outside the norm. So people who feel they're in the norm, like a human thing, they're gonna treat you differently. Like, we're not talking about violence. Violence is a whole different issue, because that has to deal with like a premeditated, like evil, like you literally, I'm just talking about like if they're not feeling, you know, being talked to as much, if they don't feel included, you know, like other people might find it hard for them to be inclusive because they see them as outside of the normative. And that could be like if you're trans, if you're just, you know, another gay identifier, if you're deal with depression, so you're not interactive in a way, or severe anxiety. Hell, positive, you could be super smart. How many black people who are first gens have issues with their family, going back to their hood family, even though they're still hood, because their family would devise them, because they talk.
Oh, you too good for us now? You graduated, you too good for us? Yeah.
They talk different. They might not no longer live in the neighborhood. That's why I said it literally is like those sub-identifiers, and, you know, like everybody's a hypocrite. Black people are some of the most, that's why I say black people are prejudiced as hell. I will, if white people said black people are prejudiced as hell, I'd be like, you damn right, they sure are. But that's not what they say. They say they reverse racism. See, now I can't agree, because that's not true.
That's not true.
They can be,
that's systematically untrue.
They can be prejudiced. They can be some hypocritical ass people, because, and I don't know that many Indian people, even though I've read, but let's say for instance, like I don't read. if someone told me Indian people discriminate, they oppress, they murder their own, they do this, they do all these bad things, you know, like they probably do. You want to know why? Because they're human. Not because I have some implicit bias about Indian. Every single, and that's from my common sense, but that's also, people need to start like reading things. Like when you start getting research studies, they have things called samples, and you start looking at how different, you start really seeing like study after study. It's like, oh, you know what? Even though this sample has like all female, but they're different genders, you know, they pretty much act similar, you know, like, because it probably has more to do with the fact that they're females, right? Or the fact that they're just human beings and their race is really not that involved. And that's why people say you can have more in common with somebody that's not your race than you do, because what your commonality is just a human person.
Just human stuff, right? Just
right.
Stuff. Whew, we could talk on and on. On and on.
I think this is a good breaker episode, because I mean, how are you going to talk about all the stuff that crammed into, like, not even just COVID, because we weren't even really tripping up. Like, we were tripping on COVID, but people were doing like super podcasty about it. Like,
yeah,
COVID plus, well, this is a civil rights movement.
Right. Plus, little fires everywhere, literally.
Like, honestly, it's like.
Have you seen that show, by the way? I feel like I'm sounding super.
I watched like the first episode, but it's a little too slow for me. Everybody says it's super good, but I think I'm the type of person. I'm the type of person I have to be in a mood to watch something. Like, I honestly have not watched MSTV at all. And
really?
That's partly because I had already. That's partly because I had already binged the good shows before COVID. So I'm not the type of person I can just sit and watch a random show. Like, I have to, like, in my mind, like, be hyped about it and feel a way to, like, watch it. Like, yesterday, this weekend, I was watching Marvel movies again because I was just like in a mood, because I felt like watching Marvel movies would calm me, you know, like, and it does. I'm a very psychological person with everything. So that's just how I watch it. So I tried to watch it, and I was like, you know what? Instead of force watching it, I'll wait and go back to so when I can really appreciate
when you're in the mood for a type of
Yeah,
and have you ever finished? You didn't finish Ozark, did you?
I'm not gonna ever finish it. The Ozark, I'll finish Little Fires because it's not that many episodes, and there's enough people tell me it's good. Just like have you seen what's it called with Regina and
7 pounds? 7
No, the
7
most
seconds?
recent one.
Oh,
no. That's our old one on Netflix. It's the one from HBO, the Watchmen.
Oh, I haven't seen it. I haven't.
That's good.
You know what turned me off about it was just like this superhero element. I was like, I don't know if I'll be into that.
It's less superhero. Like, the aesthetics, you'll see superheroes, but you're not watching a superhero film.
Okay, so I want to see a person flying in the sky. Like, no.
It's very human. It's very actually right now. Like, if you watch it, this would be a perfect time to watch it. But Ozark is just.
And I know Yaha, that fine black man is in there.
It's too slow. Yes, him, the fine black man I was talking about. Yes, for real. Yes. And he's very like with the people on Twitter. That's why, like, people gotta know their audience, my nigga. They really. I don't understand why y'all don't know. Y'all black women are your main supporters. You can piss off men because they get over it. Black women will ride. They will rock for you. They will burn your ass down, and you gotta be smart about it. Like, you gotta be smart about it. It makes no sense. Like, that's what Godfrey said when he's like, all the black athletes and all these famous people who buy because now you're in a more white space, and you probably did fall in love with this white person, but preferences don't exist in a vacuum, right? Like, they're there for a reason. But hey, you feel because now you're around all the white people, and that's just who your wife is, right? But he was like, the way that they come about it and they switch it off from black women who see a pattern happening, right? It's like, why would you do that? Black people are the ones that are buying your movies out of everybody. You think black men are the ones watching you in these love stories? They're not.
Nope, it's us. We are the largest.
And you do
consumers.
have you don't have a responsibility to beg nobody or to follow anybody's whim, but you do have a responsibility to, when people are paying that much of your base, to be like, hey, I hear you. To explain in a common sense way instead of being dismissive, which is anytime there's a black woman mob on a black man with a white woman, is because that nigga said something real off when someone mentions. Sometimes these black women will say something, and the thing about it though is, I noticed black women will be the one to be like, no, bitch, you're doing too much. It's not the case. Like, we'll police ourselves. Like, see, no, you're crying wolf right now because there's another one that's really like that. They're not gonna pay attention to this. Black women be so quick to do that. But if you're on a thread where all the black women are saying the same thing, it's because that nigga legitimately the
Fucked
way
up.
he presented her. Did you not see that one last thing, that Facebook post with a black man and his white wife? And he was like, this is my white wife. I love her. She's one of the best people I've known. I have white friends, whatever. My white people and I love them all. You can do whatever you want to me, but you can't touch them. And it read like, so you're saying you don't care about yourself and how people come at you, which is the whole point of this movement, is how people see you and how people hurt you. But he verbally said, you can hurt me, but you can't hurt them or I'm going to be mad. How?
So asinine, because he's limiting. It's so dumb. It's so dumb. It pisses me off. Like, that's why I didn't finish the caption. When he started off with, this is my white wife, I was like, okay, here's some fuck shit. I'm not doing it. Because obviously she's white. Like, get to the point. What are you trying to say? And it's like, why limit yourself? I know we were supposed to end, but this is so good. Sorry. It's like why limit yourself? Like, he's literally limiting himself of the perception. Like, I'm only going to be perceived by my white friends and by my white wife. That's it. That's all that matters. It's like, you're not living in a utopian society.
That's what he drew this in. What he did in that post is exactly what he did. He said, I value how they see me and how they're going to react to y'all's protest to me more than how y'all are going to react, because I'm assimilated with them more in my specific life. My nigga, what you should have done is not say nothing. Because at the end of the day, if there's your people, ain't no way, if your people are going to be looking at you different because of how they see some other black people, then that means they ain't seeing you like you thought they saw you. They seen you like a regular ass black person. Because ain't nobody who's your best friend or your wife looking at you differently because they see these other black people doing whatever they're doing, not don't even know you exist. But it was the most asinine thing for you to literally say, as we are, especially to the people, that you are a black man. It was just so on the nose, stupid. You are a black man. And we're literally in the streets. Black women, because those are the ones who started the movement, especially when Trayvon, any movement, period, but documented, right? That's their movement. And they got on the street, putting everybody's on the line, and said, we're not going to let them kill you. They killing black women too, but they still at a lesser rate than you, because so we could have really stayed the fuck home. To be honest. Because it wasn't black men that started these movements. It was the black women who did it, right? Like, that's just how it played out. Black men were a part of the circles and everything else like that. But it was most of the time, it's like these black women are in the street. Most of these speakers up there, they're black women. They're black women. They're fighting for you because they birthed you. And maybe that's part of some weird ass whatever. But the fact that you as a black man are having this reaction that literally say, to black people, and black women specifically, since they're the ones who spearhead this movement and they're the ones that are like visually supporting, doing the work, visually the leaders of the movement, of the movement, you're telling them, how dare you fight to like keep me alive? Because you literally said, he literally spelled out, you can hurt me, but I love them, so don't hurt them, but you can hurt me, I don't care about me. He literally said that. And the whole movement is to stop people who look like them. People who look like them who aren't your friends that would kill you. You in your little country home with all your white friends. Are you dumb? You go right around the corner. To a white friend that's not your white friend, and they're gonna treat you just like a nigga. There is no country for you in the white hemisphere. There's country for you and your 5 white people. But ain't no country for you. I wanna bet money, because niggas that reckless. I bet money he probably don't got a good relationship with his family either. Niggas that reckless, niggas that reckless, it's scientifically proven. It's scientifically proven. They have to think about, like, what are my black mama, my black whatever is not gonna, because he must have been hurt real bad by some black people in his life, because that doesn't make any sense. He didn't say nothing like, recently somebody came up to my black wife while we were in a protest, my white wife, and they yelled at her and called her ugly, and this is why I'm saying it. He didn't have no. Like Terry Crews, where the fuck did this come from? Because black people haven't said all white people evil. There are some that said it, but in this moment, they're literally, black people have probably been more accepting of all the white support. You might see the one-offs like that lady yelling in the what's her name, but majority, they locking hands with these motherfuckers. Because, and they're like, hey, come on. Like, what was this needed for? Outrage culture is a thing.
Like, I'm really noticing
What'd you
that
say?
outrage culture.
Oh yeah.
It's a thing. And I'm noticing more, like, I'm opening my eyes to, oh, you're just trolling me, right? Like, you're literally just
Yeah.
doing this to get likes, to go viral, to gain followers. Because as much as we are against, Black supremacy, what does that mean? There's going to be so many people supporting that and will like him, and MAGA supporters will be supporting Terry Crews for that statement. So there is some type of profit and gain that he is still gaining from it, even though he is shooting us down, even though he is denying his own Blackness.
The craziest part is I want to know how really because you remember they used to have that TV show, Ted Cruz and his wife.
Yes.
And his wife, even though she's super light skinned, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I remember her talking and presenting herself like a regular down home girl Black person. And he has majority of his kids as Black daughters. So I want to figure out, like, is his entire family of that mind, or is there some conflict in that? Because I remember her, he's definitely had the man alpha of the house, but she wasn't no pushover. She was very like home girl, like almost kind of like not as everybody hates Chris, not like specifically as going back as her, but she had a voice, like she was prominent in there. So it was kind of like, I look at him, I'm like, you had a Black ass family. So I'm confused. And I think maybe it has nothing to do with him, because most men don't think about, oh, I'm representative for my family. It's I'm just thinking about me. And if you look at all his films and who's he's around, these white men who probably are antithesis to all this other type of shit. And they're like, bro, I don't think it's that deep, or da 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 da. And he's like, I feel for him a smidge, because I can understand the roles that he's played, and I already know he probably heard some bullshit. He has to maneuver through them. But again, you can always say nothing. You don't have to say anything. We could have never known.
Right.
You could have never. If I was a MAGA supporter, bitch,
that's also an option.
You wouldn't hear me.
Right.
You wouldn't hear me, because just for the moment in time, even if there's other MAGA people, there's more non in this one moment. Now, when election season comes, shit, I might be vocal as fuck, because I'm gonna have my people around me. My people gonna be here because it's in that snapshot of the moment. Now we're in the moment. I have the momentum. But when you don't have the momentum, well, what did you think was gonna happen? Now you got all these racist, like, no, I say that's the wrong word. You got all these ignorant ass trolling Black Republicans that are like Candace Owens, and they always got a fucking flag next to their name, and that's how I don't even have to look at their tweet. Yes. I know they're racist, because why are you putting your flag in your name? Like, that makes you more American.
Or they'll say, I love my country. They'll put, I love my country.
We're all American.
Like, okay.
You can love your country, and they're gonna shoot you in the street.
Right. Like, what are you loving it?
You're gonna die loving. One more thing. Did you see Drew Brees? How did you think about Drew Brees thing before we talk?
Just like what you were saying earlier, how I saw it as like, he's not seeing it from the perspective of anybody else outside of his own family. Like, well, my two grandfathers fought in the war. Okay, cool. And so many Black people did too. Like, are you trying to say those Black veterans are not really for America? Did not really fight for the war too? So I think there is this need to, at least for his case, there is this need to only speak for yourself, only represent your direct lineage to this. Well, my grandfather is a veteran, and I can't disrespect the flag when we think, like, can we go back to why Colin Kaepernick did it? He got advice. He got the okay from an actual veteran to go ahead and
forget that part.
That was the appropriate way. Right. That was the appropriate way to go about protesting.
Because he was sitting down. He was sitting down first. And then the man called him out. And, he immediately was like, well, how should I do it? And the man told him to kneel. He didn't kneel into that man, the veteran Army Marine, told him you need to get on your knees.
Unless he set him up, but at this point,
he went on. He has hella television stories. I mean, interviews. The white man, like, I told him to do this. No, he literally is on TV. Like, I told him to do this. We had this conversation. I'm the one.
How come that's not going viral? Right.
But they saw it. ESPN played it. They saw it. That's why I told you, they're never stupid. It's not an ignorance. Where people are using the wrong words. Words mean things, because when you label something, automatically there is this is how I should handle this thing. I labeled it this thing. If someone's mad, this is how I handle someone who's mad. Someone is stupid is how I handle someone stupid. So when you mislabel things, you have different strategies, and that's why you're applying strategies that don't seem to be working because you labeled it wrong. It's not the strategies don't work. You labeled it wrong. You're using the wrong strategies. They're not ignorant. They're intentionally dismissive of it. They're intentionally not deep diving in it, because as much as they love to talk about their country, I agree with you saying they look at it in their direct lineage, with its antithesis to the whole I love my country anyway. You're supposed to be nationalist. Right. Why are you looking at America? Has always had that identity problem. That's why like America, you full of shit, because y'all always are very bootstrapped. Y'all always anti-welfare. Y'all always, and it's never us as a country. It's always just me and my family. Well, me and my family did it. Me and my family. I only need to look out for myself. What about my taxes? My taxes shouldn't be paying for you. No, I thought it was all about country. It can't be all. It can't be both. But because nobody checks them on it, it's like it goes out. People don't really check it, and no one's really thinking. It's just words that are being said, and they're like, hear something like, oh yeah, but it's not. They're not really thinking like, wait, that don't make sense. You know, like for him, the only thing, like there's this black girl, and I don't know if she was like, she's an analyst on there, and Shannon invited her to, like, look at his IGTV. He was like, I don't care what Dubry said. I'm not with that, because the first thing it has been years since Colin Kaepernick has been right. So many interviews. So there's not no more ways that Colin can say, this is about police brutality. I have respect.
He can't say it in like 10 different languages.
He can't say it no other way.
You gotta say it.
So Drew Brees messed up because he took it on the premise of you still gonna play ignorant, like I said, because she was saying you can't play ignorant anymore about you didn't know what Colin Kaepernick is. This has nothing to do with the flag. He already told you it had nothing to do with the flag. What he said is, in the way that it has something to do with the flag, is the flag does not mean to them. The flag does not offer the protection and the love that it offers to you to other people. That is what it has to do with the flag, if you want to bring the flag into it. Nobody, Colin didn't bring shit to the flag. He just except that he's not saluting to it. Why? Because it does not uphold the ideas for the people that look not even like me, but black people, black men that are getting murdered by police. This flag is not protecting them. This flag is not protecting those veterans. That flag didn't protect them. They got shot with it pinned on their lapel. So she was like, Drew Brees, one, he's very private. So for him to have like even come and done this interview, like when nobody asked, I wonder what
right, and it goes back to what you were saying. Who asked you? How did you just?
That means this is that, and that has to do with like evidence of no, you really thought this way. That's why the apologies don't really sit, because it's kind of like, one, you're not even like a vocal person to be able to have like this type of it's like, oh, you know what, he be saying shit all the time. He probably didn't have to think about it. No, bro, you barely do interviews. That means you thought about it. You was like, yeah, this person pitched this idea, that white man. And you were like, yeah, you know what? I feel strongly about this. And then it was the first thing out your mouth. In a situation where we're talking, the movement is focusing on this man getting murdered, because at the time, right, we're still waiting for arrest and all that other shit. That was the first thing out your mouth about a flag, not about George Floyd. It's the secondary. And that's the problem. It's the humanity, the very passive, I don't agree with him being killed, is the second thing that's most important to a flag. She was like, so I don't believe you. I don't believe you. It took 10 hours from you to talk to respected black people. No, it took 10 hours for those black people to threaten your whole little homogenous relationship, because where you get to touch black culture, and the good black feelings, right? Versus, and they weren't going to provide you with that no more. Now the things about the blackness that you like, that you're getting, it's threatened. That's why you got those apologies. And people were like, well, he's done a lot for New Orleans. And I was like, you have to understand, like, people can be, there's a white savior motif for a reason, right? And I don't believe you racist. I don't get that vibe from him. But I think he can very much fall into that, just like those coaches, that white savior motif, to where they feel like, well, I help this black people, so anything that they say that is not triggering, like, oh, you're dismissing a plight because you're like, well, I help Black people, so I can't be like doing wrong by them because I give money to them. I school supplies and food drives and all this other stuff. But you can still, right.
You
know what I'm saying?
And they don't see that. And I think that's the place where maybe that's where they need to be educated on, because nigga, what?
If you're talking about education, it's like you can have a Black friend. It needs to be called the One Black Friend Academy, and the One Black Friend is gonna stand for, it's gonna stand for the people I help. I give the money my charities are focused on for Black people, but you're still not understanding like the humanity of it. It's still like it's like a pet.
Yeah.
Like I throw a bone, because Black people are not asking you to take care of them. Black people want equity. Black people, like, and Amanda, I don't know if you've seen that with a Black girl with a fro, and she's doing like a spoken word, and she was like, we learned your Dutch, we learned your Portuguese.
Yes.
Girl, I watched that like 15 times.
We learned your violence. We learned how to loot. And to add to that, like, yes, I've heard that too.
It was another girl too. It was another one too, where it's like spoken word, and I need to find it and send it to you. Yes. And she basically is like, how are you gonna call Black people lazy? 400 years in the field is a hell of a resume builder. You can't call us lazy, because if we were truly lazy, we would be extinct. We don't have the privilege to even be lazy. That's the irony of the statement. We can't be lazy. We literally have, like, it's no possible way, because we're not given anything. We have to work for the scratch that we have. We worked our ass off for those scratch. Those people in fucking Section 8 working their ass off for that little bit they got.
Yeah.
You know how stressful and ridiculous the food stamp process is to get food stamps? It is not some easy thing.
And I'm tired of the rhetoric of people saying, well, you're not lazy. Well, you've been at Section 8 for 18 years, for however long. And if you really wasn't lazy, then you would have gotten out your ass and gotten a job. And there's just, it goes back to ignorance, and it goes back to just this laziness to just believe this stereotype of Black people when it comes to particularly Section 8 welfare. And okay, maybe there's like a small percentage of those who aren't accessing the full potential, but I know plenty of people who are in that who are in government assistance, and not just Black people, but white people,
and they got 2 jobs. Two jobs,
working hard.
You want to know why? Because they only get paid $5, $6 an hour.
It's the system. It has nothing to do with the Black person's ability to work harder or not. It's the system that's screwed up.
What housing are they gonna get when they're barely getting $400 a month from just one job, which is why they gotta get another job just to get $800? And they have these kids. They gotta buy uniforms. They gotta buy all this type of stuff. There needed to be something to give. You know that, because you sit here with your $70,000 job, and you out here complaining because you got student loans, and on top of that, you gotta pay card on all that, and your apartment now is like $1,100, and you can't find nothing cheaper, and without you having to go to Section 8, and you don't qualify. So you know about the housing discrepancy. You know it's not about how much you make. It's because it's inflated so much to where you shouldn't be paying that much in the first place. It's unreasonable.
That's what we should put our energy towards.
Right. It's unreasonable. So then you can barely afford a nice place that you want when you got $70,000, and then plus all these other responsibilities. Because people aren't looking at scale. That's why they say just because you have more money, you can have more problems, because people's problems are in scale with how much they make. So that's you just as broke as the person in Section 8. Just because they're in Section 8 broke, you just as broke. You got all these student loans, even though you're making $70,000. You got all these student loans, this apartment, this what's something you probably taking. If you're a Black woman, you probably taking care of family members. That person in Section 8 got the same issue, except that they don't make $70,000. It's the same issues.
Same.
So yeah.
To close, I need confirmation and a guaranteed response from you that you're going to cook me one of those meals that you stay posting on Instagram. Okay, I'm ready. And as soon as I touch back down in Houston, I'll be at your door or inviting you over to mine, because I'm looking at your whole I love cooking. I love just cooking. I love food. I love the process of it. It's just it's so beautiful to me. So I'm like, oh, what's she gonna show next? So I would see like your process. Oh, you cut them up, you dice them, you put them in.
Yeah.
So
I mean, because me, one of my biggest goals in life is to be able to cook, and because I've always, even since I was young, I literally have just been obsessed with cooking and wanting to be, even though every Black woman in my family is that Black cook, don't need measurings. It didn't come to me. It didn't come to me like that. And part of it is my ADHD. Too many details overwhelm me. And the cooking process but I've always, even my high school graduation project, I made a cooking show. You know, like,
really?
They called me everybody else did poster board. And I had a friend who I went to like a magnet school. We had like a television film department. So I literally went to the home ec office and we made a triple layer strawberry red velvet cheesecake.
Oh, that's dope.
Did the voiceover and everything.
So you're a baker. I'm not a baker. So if you could,
no, I'm not a baker. That was just what I chose at the moment to be the easiest to do. But you would think, I was like, well, damn, if I can't cook savory, maybe I can do. But it gets too much. So I had to do it like that. And I was like, because this is my first time making it. I'm like cataloging it for myself. And the things I make, I'm like, you have no idea how much stress I literally go through. I don't be hungry no more. But that soup I made, that Bubato soup.
Yeah, that soup looked good.
That soup lasted me for a month. I put it in the freezer, really? And every time I defrosted it was like it's even better because it sits in the thing. I made it my Instapot. I was like, damn, this is a lot for a single person. It's very, and the other thing that's very hard, it's hard to cook for a single person.
Right. The quantity, absolutely.
I eat off cravings. Cravings. That's why now I don't meal prep past 2 days. Because if I do now, I also don't cook the vegetables until the day of. I've gotten to my mind like you have to cook your vegetables the day of, because even if I cook asparagus, it won't taste good and I won't eat it. So, but my meats and stuff, I can cook those. That'll be fine. And I have to cook them in like batches. But my vegetables, I was like, you gotta cook those day of, which is why I was like, okay, well, you're gonna choose some easy. You got asparagus and Brussels sprouts. Don't be trying to do nothing else, right? Like maybe some potatoes, whatever. I just got a new I got the new
carrot.
A Ninja grill air fryer.
Ooh.
Because I got my sister my other air fryer, because I noticed like I don't even eat processed food much like that, like frozen foods. Mm-hmm. So I'm just gonna tell you, I should be like 150 pounds. Like I should not be. I don't be eating all this other shit that everybody eating. Like I think my genes are just like fucking me up or something. Like it's not fair. It's really not. Like I feel like I can't even enjoy those things, and I've never even had a taste for them. Thank God. But I was like, I should not. Like I should feel like I should be like less than this, but whatever. But like those type of air fryers where you pull out, or for people who like are cooking like outside of wings, it'd be like frozen stuff. I was like, I don't really cook that stuff.
Yeah, because I haven't had one yet.
Yeah, outside of it will change your life. It depends on like you cook. I was like, I need something where it's like I'm cooking salmon, and technically you can cook it in there, but mine was like 3.5 quarts, so it's very small, and I didn't feel like having to do it in batches, even though it cooks very fast. So the grill I got, my friend invited me to grill meal prep on her grill, and I was like, oh, I really like the grill taste on everything. I grilled salmon and pork loins, and so they have a Ninja grill where it's an air fryer and it's like an indoor grill at the same time.
Okay.
So like yesterday.
So you already have it? The appliance? You already have it?
Yeah, I set it up yesterday.
Okay, well I'm ready to see those videos. So hello.
When I get back on Instagram, I got off Instagram this week. I think I might come back next week.
Okay, well I'll be waiting. And when I touch down Houston, I'm not playing.
I got you. I owe you.
I know. All those bills I'll be cooking for
you. I owe you. You got it.
Thank you again for being on, Alicia.
No problem. Thank you
for asking me. Diggity.com. Yeah, you are always a great person to have these conversations with, or just any conversation with. You really give enrich perspective that really opens my mind. So
thank you. Sometimes I'll be like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about, but this words don't come.
I'm gonna say all these words, no problem.
You're gonna say all these words.
All right, girl. Well, I will check you next time.
All right. Well, have a good night.
You too. And we'll do this again, of course.
Okay.
All right. Bye. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of God Built This Podcast with your host, Maxine. Be sure to leave a review, give me 5 stars, and of course, subscribe. Also, follow God Built This Podcast on Instagram at God Built This Pod. God bless.